That's the one and only Stevie Nicks, whose songs have touched the lives of millions, both for her work with Fleetwood Mac and for her solo career.
You can't trick me into singing.
Yeah, totally, Stevie.
That is the one and only Stevie Nicks, whose voice has changed the lives of millions of people, both through her time in Fleetwood Mac and as a solo artist. You will not get me singing. That's right, Stevie Nicks, the true voice of Fleetwood Mac, has always been honest about her truth, especially in terms of her tangled love story with her bandmate and former partner, Lindsey Buckingham. Their artistic coupling was spectacular, but the cracks of their relationship keep us all captivated decades later. Recently, Nicks did reveal one thing about Buckingham that she could no longer tolerate, thus taking us back to a dynamic that manifested itself in some of music's biggest hits in rock history. Long before Fleetwood Mac's storied rise, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham had always been laying wheels on a track of love and music. As the duo Buckingham-Nicks, they were spending the early 1970s trying to create a career for themselves while writing great music which personified their cavalier eclecticism. Their romance was no less passionate but was already in early stages of unraveling. In 1975, when the duo officially stepped into Fleetwood Mac, it was an instant life change. A fortuitous opportunity to rejuvenate the band became an opportunity for global recognition and personal struggle. The bond between Stevie and Lindsey, both personally and artistically, sparked some new energy into Fleetwood Mac. Whatever that new energy was, it also brought a new dimension of intensity that had the potential to become just as explosive as it was enlightening. From the very beginning, their creative approaches seemed intended to clash. Lindsey was a perfectionist, hyper-focusing on each aspect of their music, while Stevie preferred a more spontaneous and free-spirited setting. These, at least initially beneficial distinctions, would often become fraught. As Stevie later reflected in a 2017 interview with NPR, "We were two very different kinds of people. Lindsey had a level of attention to detail and drive for every element of the project that I could not appreciate. On the other hand, I needed the space to allow my songs to unfold, and the differences in our ways of working often caused both their best accomplishments and their biggest arguments."
The release of Fleetwood Mac's Rumours in 1977 changed the course of music history for the band. However, what fans heard as some of the greatest songs of all time were, essentially, gut-wrenching vignettes of the chaos in the band. Songs like Dreams and Go Your Own Way were rooted in the heartbreak of Stevie and Lindsey's very public separation. In them, fans experienced what two people were saying in their respective ways, with Dreams being Stevie's dream for a way forward and Go Your Own Way being Lindsey's frustration and anger. Despite becoming one of the biggest-selling albums of all time, Rumours marked the beginning of a long, chaotic period of time for Stevie and Lindsey. Their once romantic relationship could hardly survive the separation, the added pressure of fame, and the never-ending band touring schedule. What was once romantic became a source of continual tension that the whole band and, in the end, fans could not help but notice. While the friction between Stevie and Lindsey often led amazing music, it also revealed the deeply fractured relationship they had. Their collaboration enjoyed millions of fans, but it also was costly in ways that would become influential parts of their legacy just as much as the music itself would. Over time, tension between Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham moved from private disagreement to public discontent. Although the incidents remained in the public domain, some were certainly more than regular disagreements. One of the main breaking points happened in 2018, when Buckingham was suddenly thrown out of Fleetwood Mac weeks before the world tour happened. While the band issued communications that were diplomatic, Stevie would later tell Rolling Stone that a scenario at the Music Cares event had caused her to lose her limit. She described Buckingham's attitude during her speech, calling it dismissive of her contributions, and noted the enjoyment had been drained from it.
For Buckingham, it had simply become intolerable. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times, he called the dismissal a coup and suggested that Stevie offered the band an ultimatum. He would leave or she would. The public nature of their feud engendered engaging conversations amongst a fan base that was often literally polarized. This was not the first time their interpersonal discord took precedent over their professional obligations. Their performances consistently seemed to show signs of their complicated relationship. At the group's 1997 reunion for The Dance, the resolution of their emotions was on full display. When they performed Silver Springs, Stevie sang lines such as, "You'll never get away from the sound of the woman that loves you," while staring dead into Lindsey's eyes. It was a defining moment. For the group, it was simply another acknowledgement of the emotional baggage they both carried. Fleetwood Mac was enshrined in rock history, while the relationships between its members were as disjointed as ever. For Stevie Nicks, her relationship with Lindsey Buckingham was a hugely creative relationship and lived with a growing amount of frustration. The strain that built up over years of working together inevitably showed itself in ways that could not be ignored. Stevie's honest reflections over the years included many examples of the tension she experienced with Buckingham. Of the issues Stevie discussed, one of the most consistently mentioned was Buckingham's controlling behavior in the studio. While Buckingham was very committed to perfection and made some of Fleetwood Mac's best work, this controlled approach often made Stevie feel cooped up and diminished. In a recent interview with The Guardian, Stevie explained, "Sometimes it felt like he wanted to control not just my musical identity, but everything about me. It was exhausting." This sense of creative and personal limitation became harder for Stevie to deal with, more and more as their personal relationship had already deteriorated. One of the most infamous breaking points occurred when Lindsey returned to the band in the late 1990s. During their reunion tour rehearsals, there were reports of backstage arguments, and Stevie would later comment to Rolling Stone in an interview that he could act provocatively for no reason. Although the details of these arguments were hardly reported on then, Stevie's frustration began to seep through. Over time, they would have to put together a cycle of apologies and grievances. Stevie's breaking point was not from one specific event, but rather from years of non-communicated professional wrangling. She described the feeling she had as despair, a constant feeling of being second-guessed by Lindsey, or incapable of communicating that to him. In the end, she thought it was unbearable, according to the New York Times last year. Although Stevie has acknowledged the many musical things they did together, she clearly has been affected by the personal strain of their relationship, which influenced their personal interactions for years to come. After years of turmoil, Nicks has been able to think about her relationship with Lindsey Buckingham from a more realistic point of view. While they still have animosity between them, she has also been able to remember the beauty of their collaboration. "We made really great music together," she said in an interview, but she is candid about the difficulties of their relationship. "We always had love. We just couldn't make it work," Stevie summarized, reflecting the bittersweet conclusion of their time together. What a powerful yet troubled relationship they had, and the closeness that they shared fueled their best work and their worst fights. There have been virtually no signs of resolution since Buckingham's exit from the band in 2018. Rather, Stevie seems to have found a sense of peace focusing on their shared history of music, a body of work which, despite the personal trauma surrounding it, continues to resonate with fans all over the world. Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham's tumultuous relationship certainly impacted both their music and the legacy of Fleetwood Mac. Their creative tension served as both a catalyst for innovation and a source of division, producing music that over 40 years later is still iconic. The dynamic of their partnership is evident in every song they made together, including an album like Rumors that addresses the painful feelings of heartbreak, rage, and desire. To this day, the influence of their dynamic is firmly felt. In an interview, Stevie once said that their dynamic, both personal and professional, was always key to the success of the band, and she said, "It was the drama that made it interesting." This drama did not always end successfully for the group, but it also created a story for the ages, and a story that was easy to relate to from the perspective of the listeners. But at the same time, the impacts of their complex history was clear. Mick Fleetwood called their relationship both a blessing and a curse, and noted several times that band's ongoing tension, in some ways, cannibalized the music. To illustrate their inability to fully reconcile after they broke up, at one point they were so intertwined musically and personally that most fans did not even know which was which.